Marvel vs. Capcom 2, New Age of Heroes.
Back in 2022, Capcom released the game Capcom Fighting Collection. Capcom Fighting Collection came out in celebration of the Street Fighter series' 35th anniversary. It included Street Fighter Darkstalkers and other series that haven't seen love in a long time, such as Cyberbots. While a lot of people play these games in different formats, collecting them all together was a very easy welcome. While that was hype, what we have with the release of the Marvel vs. Capcom Fighting Collection feels even bigger. The game with the most hype is definitely Marvel vs. Capcom 2. However, it also brings 6 more Sega Naomi and arcade CPS originals together. The most unique inclusion is probably 1993's ultra-violent The Punisher. The 1993 Punisher arcade game delivers fast-paced beat-em-up action with satisfying combat mechanics and dynamic co-op gameplay, where players can choose between the Punisher or Nick Fury. It can be surprisingly tactical, but most of all, it's really just fun to play. The diverse enemy roster and explosive boss battles keep the gameplay fresh, making it a standout in the beat-em-up genre. From here we get what really is the genesis of this collection with 1994's Children of the Atom. This was the first instance of the Street Fighter layout being applied to the X-Men. The roster is sort of what you'd expect, but it also includes some offbeat choices such as Silver Samurai. Children of the Atom really gave X-Men fans at the time a chance to battle it out with their favorite characters, and epic fast-paced fights that helped set the stage for future Marvel fighting games. Fast forward 2 years later in 1996, and here we have 2 of the featured titles, coming out in relatively quick succession. The first being Marvel Superheroes, with the big selling point of it following the Thanos storyline. You beat different enemies to collect stones and eventually face off against your main antagonist. The roster expanded to include even more characters, and the game had a lot more flair than Children of the Atom. Later that year, Marvel's first crossover was released with Street Fighter vs. X-Men. Not only was it the first crossover, but it also featured the introduction of the now infamous 2-on-2 battles. The introduction of the tag system in one long drawn-out battle managed to create an even more intense feeling than prior iterations. Alongside this, it also has one of the most unforgettable boss fights. This game would really set the tone for future releases in both stylization and technicals. After releasing 3 games in just 2 years, you'd think they had laid out their format, but it continued to evolve. 2 years later, Marvel Superheroes vs. Street Fighter came out. The variable assist created an entire new dimension of gameplay. It brought endless new combos about, and you didn't even have to switch out your character. What's neat about this game's inclusion is that it features the character Norimaru. Due to rights disputes, he was removed with all later ports of the game. However, thanks to the region switching feature enabled in the collection, you can finally play as him. All fighting game fans have felt the pain of having a character excluded, even if they are literally a joke. From there, we got Capcom vs. Marvel, which dived deeper into Capcom's roster. You could finally play as fan-favorite characters such as Morgan and Mega Man. The variable cross mechanic introduced yet another layer to the gameplay. Now you could perform flashy combos with your 2 characters, completely turning the tide of gameplay. This brings us to the biggest featured title, Marvel vs. Capcom 2, also known as New Age of Heroes. This was the last of the sprite-based crossovers and its pinnacle, all based on the original Sega Naomi hardware. It did go back on aspects of the cross introduced in its prior iteration, but not to its detriment. Instead of what was your standard 2v2 tag, it was extended to an overwhelming 3. With that, the skill ceiling in the game genuinely became infinite. The 3-on-3 tag was accompanied by an expanded roster of 56 characters, allowing you to choose pretty much any character you could want from their respective franchises. It might not make too much sense to you why these particular games are important to be included in the collection, but some of these genuinely haven't been available since the 90s. Games such as Children of the Atom, X-Men vs. Street Fighter, and Punisher have never even had arcade-accurate ports. While other collections in the past have been positively reviewed or sold a lot of copies, such as Street Fighter 30th Anniversary, this is the first time they actually feel good. We all enjoyed the PS3 and 360 era, but those games had a lot of issues and just did not feel the same. These games have parity with the originals, and some arguably even feel better. They obviously put a lot of care in recreating that original CRT feeling. A big selling point is the online feature. It was going a little slow as more and more players onboarded, but they released a patch very quickly to improve matchmaking. You won't be getting the same people over and over again, and the wait times are pretty quick now. The netcode is very good, but a little bare bones as it doesn't feature replays or anything like that. So you probably don't have to worry too much because the goons will probably still be on Fightgate. It has casual, ranked, spectating, and everything else you'd want alongside, most importantly, a good netcode. While all this is awesome, my favorite part of the game is some of the bonuses. There's a large section of this game solely dedicated to featuring artwork. There's original concept work for characters like Magneto and Doom that no one has probably seen in 25 years. The scans are beyond quality, allowing you to just completely zoom in on and take in. Not to mention, the artwork you've become familiar with over the last couple decades can also be seen here, in higher quality than possibly ever before. The inclusion of this, the music players, amazing training modes, 4x3 screens, and achievements makes it really hard to go wrong. In regards to actual value, this is probably the best Capcom collection ever. It may have steep competition with the upcoming Capcom Fighting Collection 2, but as of right now, this is probably the best ever. Having played these games at my local arcade and in the past, this is the closest you'll get to their original feel. This is also the opportunity for longtime players to actually go online and get frequent matchmaking. Given that they've already included an unannounced patch for two of the only complaints people had, it's easy to say that this already classic collection will be in good shape going forward. If this game is not a 10, it's about as close to a 10 as you can get. However, we are curious what you guys have to say. What do you think of the Capcom vs. Marvel collection? What are your favorite featured games? Are there any things you wish were included? Be sure to let us know in the comments below. At Inner Spiral, we aim to cover the video games, movies, and shows we all love, so be sure to join us, and we'll see you next time in the Spiral.